Hello everyone, it's comic book time for the week of June 5th, 2013. So here's how it's going to go. It's going to be a 5 out of 5 star rating. And here are your comic book choices of the week. Just click the screen and it will take you to that point in the exact video in which I talk about that comic cover that you just clicked right now. So I will see you soon and enjoy. And our trade review of the week is Batman and Robin Volume 1, Born to Kill, now available in trade paperback. So the first comic of the week is Action Comics, issue number 21. This is the end of Andy Diggle and Tony S. Daniels' run on Action Comics. Unfortunately, a very short one. I am, of course, talking about the 3-issue run. Basically, this was just 3 parts. It started at Action Comics issue number 19. And then 20, and then, of course, 21 would be the ending. So it was a 3-parter, which in retrospect, I did enjoy this 3-parter story arc. It was definitely a nice break from Grant Morrison's kind of, huge kind of, like, giant plot points. It's nice to just have these kind of, like, minor kind of slow down comic issues, if you know what I'm trying to say. So let's talk about what made this issue pretty good, or even great. First, we have Tony S. Daniels' art. I fucking love the way he draws Superman. He has a really nice, the muscle tones are great. Just the way he actually draws him is awesome. I like how he draws people, especially Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen, and just any human character is really great. Not so much creatures, but the human characters are very good. Another interesting thing is they use some of the elements from the other issues, like Superman's hallucinations, and they apply it with different characters. Lois Lane, he has a hallucination about Lois Lane being infected by the hybrid. And then we continue into the story, and there's a huge epic fight between, as we saw in the previous issue at the end of issue number 20, it was Lex Luthor get all suited up, and he's like, I'm going to go save Metropolis. And then we finally get to see that fight. And the art, the suit itself, the design that Tony S. Daniel does is awesome. I think that's like an amazing suit for Lex Luthor when he's fighting it out. Lex Luthor should only be using his suit when fighting Superman, not in a business suit. Now, some of the bad things about the comic book, or the actual issue itself, 2 things. 1, the story was a bit predictable. You know what was going to happen. You knew, oh yeah, he's just going to... Certain events that happen, is exactly what Superman has to do. Spoiler alert. He has to go up into the sky, to get up into the sun, and he goes straight for it, and he's gonna be healed instantly. There's no like, oh, he goes into the sky and he just dies. Like that's the end of Superman. No, he's gonna come back and then just suit up, or not even suit up, power up from the sun rays, and just go back down and just destroy Lex Luthor. I'd like to see Superman overcome Lex Luthor, even if he's at like half power and like weakened by the hybrid creature. That would have been interesting. And the second problem with this comic book, or the actual issue itself, is Lois Lane's part is really irrelevant in this issue, and it kind of takes away from the main struggle that Superman's having. So if we would have just taken her out of it, or put maybe less of her, then I would have been fine with that. Overall, this was a good ending to Andy Diggle and Tony S. Daniels' run on Action Comics, and I'm giving Action Comics issue 21 a 4 out of 5 red stars. I hope to see Tony S. Daniel coming back and drawing Superman for any really Superman comic book, Superman, even Superboy, Supergirl. Probably not going to be in Superman Unchained because that's a Jim Lee's thing. So we'll just have to wait and see what he's going to do next. And now the next comic book is Superior Spider-Man issue number 11, coming off Superior Spider-Man issue number 10. We finally figure out that it's kind of, the issue is called Independence Day because Peter Parker is now gone, or we assume he's gone from Octavius's mind, and Now we completely switch gears to a completely different news story, which is about it's basically the finally the day that Alistair Smythe is going to be executed because of the events prior that Alistair Smythe murdered J. Jonah Jameson's wife. And back in the previous comic, they were like, one day we're going to kill you, and that day is today. So we see all the preparations that are happening before Alistair Smythe gets executed. We see J. Jonah Jameson's grief and how he's dealing with the situation. He's not too very happy. He always says like, "Oh, I can't wait to see this guy burn." So J. Jonah Jameson calls up SpiderMan and asks him to supervise the execution because he feels it in his bones. He's like, "Yeah, he's gonna attack, and I need you to be there in case shit goes down. I need backup, and you have helped me. Help me just take down the criminals of this city, and he needs him there." So they finally get to the Raft's maximum security prison. Spider-Man arrives there, and then basically, so lo and behold, all things just break loose. And then at the very end, an interesting thing happens, which I am now excited for the next issue, because I think it's very interesting how they made this happen. Basically, the miniature Spider Slayers go inside the previous victims of Spider-Man. So we have Boomerang, Scorpion, and Vulture. Vulture's been blinded, so the robots actually go into his eyes, and then they fix his seeing. So he's like, "Oh, I can see," and blah blah blah. And everyone's not only cured of their pain, or basically they're kind of fixed, but they're actually more powerful than they ever could. So now they're going to help Alistair Smythe break out of the raft and essentially kill Spider-Man. And so that I'm very excited for the next issue. The good is the art. Unfortunately, I can't pronounce the artist's name, but he is doing a very good job at doing some of the art. Nice. I really like how he draws Spider-Man. It's very, very good, like proportions. All of the human characters look great. I think it's very strange how Alistair Smythe has the essentially, I don't know if it's the helmet or just like if it's a mask on his head, but it doesn't really look like it could be anything. I don't understand what is that supposed to be. Like, he has these little, I don't know, like alien claws coming out of his cheeks from the mask. It all looks very strange, but still, the art was great. And now we have Daniel Slott? Yes. Daniel Slott still writing the Superior Spider-Man, and he does a pretty good job. The dialogue's good for the most part, except for Alistair Smythe. When he breaks out, there's some cheesy delivered dialogue there, but I guess it's his character to have cheesy dialogue. But the characterizations are good, and you can really tell that J. Jonah Jameson just really hates this guy. You can see it in the writing, and almost like everyone hates him, including Spider-Man. You can tell that he hates Alistair Smythe as much as Jonah does. And the only bad in this issue is you finally realize that without Peter Parker's ghosts, or just Ghost, being there to kind of counteract Octavius's assholeness, you really start to not like Octavius's character. I mean, he just puts down people that he just deems like unintelligent. The only time he's really, nice to anyone is when he's with like Anna Maria, and which I actually love her character, by the way. She's a great love interest for him. It's always fun to see them together. But that really is the only problem, Octavius being an asshole to just anyone. So I really enjoyed this issue, and I can't wait to read the next one. So I am giving Superior Spider-Man issue number 11 a 4 out of 5 red stars. Our next issue in comic book is Daredevil Dark Knights issue number 1. This is a new limited series with artist and writer Lee Weeks taking the helm for this new series. This is going to be an 8-issue run, and let's get into the review. A blizzard brings New York to a standstill, and a young patient lies on death's door unless Daredevil can get to him in time. Alright, so let's start off with the story. So the story begins with Matt Murdock, Daredevil, in a prologue scene where he's just lying in the snow, just defeated, just cannot move. And then basically it's a one-page prologue, which I think is awesome. I think that's great storytelling. And then next we start off with a family in Pennsylvania that get into a car accident. And then we flash forward to today in New York, and then we catch up with what's happening in New York. And there's a massive blizzard that's happening, and people are off the streets. There's no cars, no buses, no trains, no anything, and it's just dead silence throughout the whole city. And this is what this comic book does great. It creates this kind of just atmosphere that New York is just, it's just kind of like this wasteland, and all you can hear is the snow. And basically it's very interesting because now that everything's quiet, everything's just very, like, nothing's happening. Like, New York is just this huge bustling place, like cars everywhere, and just people, so much signs of life that it just very silent. And we see how much this can go to an extent, because Matt Murdock is able to hear a freaking helicopter plane, like, crash miles away. And I think that's really interesting as a storytelling device. But what really makes this comic book great is the writing, which is the storytelling, and the art. I guess we're going to go into the good parts of this. The good parts would be storytelling and art, all done by Lee Weeks. And it's just great storytelling. We get to see what happens to Matt Murdock, and then we also see what's happening to this family and the car accident, how that affects their lives. And we deal with Matt Murdock, Daredevil. We don't know how he got into the hospital. What we know, we start to figure it out over and over, or just we actually see what happens to him. And then we finally go back and forth from Murdock to the family, and then we see these events play out in a very interesting and in kind of an awesome way. Some of the other things that I like about this comic book are the storytelling elements. That being one of them being, like, there's kind of this religious undertone there, because there's all of these Bible quotes that they have throughout the entire comic book, and I found that very interesting because it fit very well with what you're seeing, in the pages and in the panels. And the art and the layout itself is just incredible. This is some of the best art I've seen, probably out of all these issues all these comic books I'm doing this week. This is probably the best. And really, Lee Weeks, he really writes just great dialogue and just awesome monologue. This perfectly fits Daredevil's character and basically who he is as a character, and it's just incredible. You need to read this. It's amazing. Now, some of the bad stuff, I can't really think of anything bad. I've been looking through this and really thinking over. There's nothing really bad about this comic. I mean, this is great. I mean, this is probably, if I dare say, one of the best Daredevil titles, except probably maybe Mark Waid's series that he has right now. But I think it's up there with the current Daredevil series right now. They definitely put this up there. So I guess since we're dealing with Daredevil, I'm going to say the verdict. Lawyer jokes. Anyways, it's a 5 out of 5. So speaking of Daredevil books, we have Brian Michael Bendis. Is this? Whatever. We have his Age of Ultron series, and it's up to issue number 9. This is a 10-issue run, so next issue is going to be the, quote, epic conclusion, as it says in the comic book itself. And in my personal opinion, everything after issue number 7, or I think 6, was okay. It wasn't as good as everything that happened before. Really, the strongest issues were the first, honestly, the first 2. They were probably like the best issues out of the entire series. And then it just kind of became subpar to okay. And really the only thing that's been holding me from not dropping this book title is really the art and just how it's very cinematic, and I enjoy that. But really, enough about the past issues and just the series in a whole. Let's talk about this issue and what made it good. I'd like to reiterate the art. We have Brandon Peterson and Carlos Pacheco. So both artists do different time zones. I believe Pacheco does some of the stuff when they go back to the Hank Pym incident, where Wolverine's about to kill Hank Pym in the, I believe it was the 7th issue of Age of Ultron. Yeah, probably. And Peterson does the future, I think maybe the Savage Land as well. But yeah, all the future stuff where Tony Stark is kind of this dominant role. And the other good point about this issue is that finally we're getting back to what made the series or this actual comic book good. We're going back to hopefully we're getting back to the main story, back to the future where Ultron is hunting down everyone. So, and hopefully we get there. And basically this issue is just moving the story forward. We kind of took a detour into this dimension. Now we're getting back to our dimension. And hopefully Brian Michael Bendis just writes the ending that just, puts everything aside. And we just look at that ending and we're just like, wow, that's amazing. And we just forget about all the mistakes that and kind of subpar storytelling that some of the issues may have had. And the only problem with this issue is that it moves the story forward, but really it doesn't really add anything to the series. It's just something to move it forward. And that's kind of disappointing in its own way. So that's why I'm giving Age of Ultron issue number 9 a 3.5 out of 5. And our next comic book is All New X-Men issue number 12 with writer Brian Michael Bendis and artist Stuart Immonen. And this was a very solid issue of All New X-Men. Where we last picked off from All New X-Men issue number 11, the Uncanny Avengers. Actually, the Uncanny X-Men came, and as soon as our X-Men, the original X-Men, were heading out, they met up with the Uncanny Avengers. And as we know, Havoc, Alex Summers, Scott Summers' brother, is part of that team. And in this issue is basically their confrontation. They're discussing what happens to Scott Summers, his Scott Summers, Havoc's Scott Summers, not the original Scott Summers that we have now. So basically, he's confronted with all basically the sins of what the future Scott Summers is doing, and we get a little bit of flashback to, not a flashback, but we see what Mystique is up to and the team with Mastermind and Sabretooth. They're still going around stealing money and using illusions to ward off the authorities. But they didn't spend too much time on Mystique's part, and then went back to what made the actual this issue good, which was the interpersonal conflict between Scott Summers and his brother, and they had a nice touching moment. And if you look at the cover, you see that there's Alex and Scott are like fighting, but they don't actually fight in this issue. But there is in fact a conflict that happens between the X-Men and the Uncanny Avengers, but it's definitely not who you expect, and it's kind of just one character's overreaction of a situation that's happened in the past. But it is, you can see where she's coming from because everyone has experienced it, but she doesn't know because she's from, that past. But all in all, this was a very good issue, and I'm looking forward to the next one after they go against Mystique. So the only bad I could probably see in this issue itself, and it's not really a bad point, it's just something that kind of annoyed me, is in one of the scenes, in one of the panels, Mastermind asks Mystique, what is all this money happening? Like, we already have enough money to buy a small country. Why do we need to keep on robbing these banks? And we really don't get a definitive answer. But I think that's just Bendis trying to, save that plot point for the next issue, which makes me want to read the next issue a lot more. So that was only the really annoying thing, is that we really didn't get an answer of why Mystique continues to rob banks, even with this huge sum of money. So All New X-Men was a very solid issue this week. Everything, definitely nothing to complain about. It's proving itself to be a very solid and awesome series, and it gets a 4 out of 5 red stars. And our next review is Thor: The Dark World Prelude, issue number 1 of 2. This is a Prelude series, just like they did for Iron Man 3. And unfortunately, this is a very misleading title, because this is, in fact, it's, at least for the first issue, not even a prequel or a prelude to the Dark World. It's really just what happens between Thor and the Avengers. And what happens, the events that they describe in this issue, they're just boring, and nothing happens. It does nothing to give or to even take away from the events that happened between the Thor film and the Avengers film. It's just basically we figure out how we got to Earth, and that's just basically one panel. And it really, this whole Prelude issue is just, it's really unnecessary. But I hope the second one, it finally has something to do with the Dark World and the Dark Elves, and it's just really, really disappointing. But I mean, the art is fine. The inking is very good, or the inker that they have on this, very good, and see, there were some new set photos released from Thor: The Dark World, and this is what this comic book should look like. Not exactly this, but it should deal with this kind of thing. It shouldn't be about what happened between Thor and the Avengers. It could have been, but what they made was very boring and not necessary. So, unfortunately, I'm going to have to give Thor: The Dark World Prelude a 2.5 out of 5 red stars. Hopefully the second issue will actually have some sort of plot point that is involved with the next Thor film. Our next comic book is East of West, issue number 3, by writer Jonathan Hickman and artist Nick Dragotta. So this issue deals with Death's wife, Xyalian, being captured and held in her own house by her father and sister, the House of Mayo, I believe that is. But yeah, her sister's name is Hun, and she's being basically stuck into the garden and just forced to be there in exile. We get to see some Xyalian's past. We find out that she's involved with the Chosen, and we see different incarnations of the Chosen from the past versus what we see later in the panels, or which they're basically the Chosen are now kids. As you can see, Wars, is a kid, and he tells us because they're all color coded, and the use of color in this comic book is very very well. The colorist, I'll find his name right now. Frank Martin is the colorist, and he does a very good job. And I really like the actual art itself, how it has it's futuristic. Like you can obviously tell there's hints of machine and technology in almost every single character except for maybe some the general. But you can tell that they're almost taking like cowboys, like that kind of elements from that time, and then mixing it with futuristic stuff, and it's a nice meld, which really makes for some interesting character designs and just designs in general. You can see the kind of horse that Death rides, and it's very interesting. And moving on to the story, this is very well paced. East of West has a very nice pacing. It's I like that there's a mystery almost happening. Like what is the message, and why are the Chosen after Death? Is Death a part of the Chosen? And hopefully we're gonna figure that out in either the next issue or moving forward into the series. And if I had to think of bad, really, there's anything bad about this issue. It's very nice, clean, solid storyline, good art, and I'm excited for the next issue. Interesting storyline and great art makes East of West, issue number 4, a 4.5 out of 5. This series continues to prove itself as a competent and well-drawn, well-written series from Image Comics, and I hope to be reading some more issues later on. So now on to our trade review of the week, and this is the collected edition of Batman and Robin, the New 52 series, and this is Batman and Robin, Volume 1, Born to Kill. Written by Peter Tomasi and artist Patrick Gleason. Now, both of these men right now, they're actually the creative team for this comic book right now. Peter Tomasi has written issue 1 to present, and Patrick Gleason is still on. I believe he didn't draw issue number 10 because I think that was a Night of the Owls crossover event. But they are still together and still doing Batman and Robin. Now, why did I pick Batman and Robin this week? Because right now it's available in trade paperback, and Volume 1 collects Batman and Robin issues 1 to 8, and it has a variant gallery at the back, and there's some nice variants there, and basically I will show you the covers of 1 through 8. Alright, so let's talk about the story, the art, and the good and the bad of this graphic novel. So let's start off with the story. The story starts off with Batman and Robin finally going out on their, not really their first mission, but we see that they're going out on missions. And we see how their work ethics and how they interact with each other when they're on the job. and we see later on that there is a mysterious new villain in town called Nobody, and Nobody is actually a character from Bruce Wayne's past, which I don't want to spoil because it's an interesting character there. And really, what makes the story great is the dialogue between Bruce Wayne and Damian Wayne, Batman and Robin. See, in Grant Morrison's run of Batman and Robin back in 2009, it was Dick Grayson as Batman and Damian Wayne as Robin. And see, Dick Grayson was kind of like, for lack of a better term, the good cop, and then Damian was kind of just the bad cop in this situation. Dick Grayson was basically kind of Nightwing in his attitude and his morals, and Damian Wayne was really trying to be Batman, trying to be his father. But in this one, in the 2011 New 52 version, we kind of have both of them playing the very dark and gritty roles, the bad cop situation. And it's very interesting, the dialogue and how they deal with crime fighting in Gotham and different situations. And really, the one of the main points of this is that the villain that they have is very well written, and he's almost like a plot device in order to affect the main characters, Batman and Robin, because this villain, Nobody, he's going to test Bruce Wayne's relationship with his son Damian, and he's going to make him second guess his relationship with Damian and basically manipulate him. But really, ultimately their relationship is going to prevail, and even from this, kind of manipulative villain being Nobody, this man from Bruce Wayne's past, he's definitely going to try and break them up and destroy their partnership. And it's basically their characters have to struggle with the adversities of these kind of second guessing themselves and their relationship. And it's very interesting. We see this through the dialogue and through the pacing, and each issue kind of reflects different moral dilemmas that both characters have, and it's very, very interesting to see, and it makes for a great story and great dialogue, which is really important in a comic book like this. So let's talk about the art. I really like how Gleason draws the main characters, Alfred, Bruce Wayne, Damian Wayne, and just basically any main character that they have is really well drawn. I like the shadows, almost like everything feels very, very gritty, like the Stonehenge. The lighting is great. How he uses basically there's some scenes where there's a lot of fire that's implicated, and there's a lot of nice shadow and lighting effects. All right, so let's get to the bad. The only really 2 points of that I want to get across is the first issue was really subpar compared to basically the issues 2 to 8. Everything else was great after that. It's just that first issue was just, I can see why people didn't want to get into Batman and Robin when they did. But the second point would have to be when Gleason draws some of the secondary characters like the thugs, maybe the police, and some of the victims, just any secondary character that isn't Bruce Wayne, Alfred, Nobody, Damian Wayne, they're just awful looking. I mean, some of the strangest face proportions, and it just really does not look good. But that's really the only the bad points I could think of. But the good thoroughly outweighs the bad, and I think this is my second favorite Batman series right now in the New 52. Number 1 would be Batman, Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo, and then Batman and Robin, and then Detective Comics with Tony S. Daniel. But I really enjoyed this. It's a good character study between Bruce Wayne and Damian Wayne. Even though they have a complicated relationship, there's still love in there, and it's great to see that. And I really enjoyed this graphic novel comic book. Now, my verdict for Batman and Robin Volume 1 Born to Kill on trade paperback is a 4.5 out of 5. I really enjoyed this, and you should definitely pick it up now that it's in trade paperback, or even pick it up in hardcover if you like hardcover. And also, think about if you do pick this up, you can also pick up Volume 2, Batman and Robin Volume 2 Pearls, which is now out in hardcover on the same day as the trade paperback of Volume 1. Well, that is it for Comic Book Time reviews for the week of June 5th, 2013. Make sure to like and subscribe and comment. Let me know what kind of comic book series that you're interested in that you think that I should check out, and I may consider that. I'll be doing more reviews. Man of Steel is coming out very, very soon. I'm really excited about that, and I might be doing reviews on the first, second, third, and fourth, plus Superman Returns, and maybe doing a review of the whole anthology and leading up to Man of Steel, and that should be exciting. And thank you for watching.